Picture what you think you know about a Roman soldier. The gleaming lorica segmentata, the red-crested helmet, the eagle standard held high against a blue Mediterranean sky. A legionnaire of the mightiest empire the ancient world ever produced. Iron, disciplined, feared, strong, comfortable, proud. Now forget all of it, because if you were a Roman soldier posted to Judea in the 1st century, you were not proud. You were not comfortable. You were not where any soldier wanted to be. Judea was the posting that ended careers, the province that broke men's bodies and minds, a place so hostile in its climate, its terrain, its people, and its politics, that Roman commanders used it as a punishment assignment for legions that had underperformed. And yet, the Roman soldier who survived a tour of duty in Judea left carrying something no soldier in Gaul or Germania ever carried back. Here's the detail most people miss. What he ate, what he carried, and what he endured in Judea tells you more about the Roman Empire's limits than all its victories ever could. This is what it actually felt like to wear the eagle in one of the most dangerous corners of the ancient world. Judea, roughly 63 BC through 135 AD, a narrow strip of land on the eastern edge of the Mediterranean, a province that sat at the fault line of 3 continents, and at the intersection of every major trade route connecting Egypt to Syria to Arabia. Strategically vital, geographically punishing. Rome annexed Judea under Pompey in 63 BC. The Jewish population did not welcome this. They had never welcomed foreign rule. They had fought the Assyrians. They had fought the Babylonians. They had fought the Seleucids just 1 century earlier, and won. The Maccabean revolt was living memory to the grandparents of the people a Roman soldier now had to police. This was not a conquered people who had forgotten what sovereignty tasted like. This was a people who believed, with theological certainty, that their land was given to them by God, and that any occupation of it was a cosmic offense. For the Roman soldier assigned here, that context shaped everything. Every checkpoint, every tax collection, every Passover when Jerusalem swelled from 80,000 residents to nearly 300,000 pilgrims, and the tension in the streets became something you could feel on your skin. The province was administered from Caesarea Maritima on the coast, a Roman-built city of white marble, aqueducts, and harbor facilities that looked out of place against the ochre landscape behind it. The governor lived there. The real administrative machinery of Roman Judea was there, but the soldiers were not in Caesarea. The soldiers were spread across the interior. The main garrison in Jerusalem, the city Rome most needed to control and most feared losing, was quartered in the Antonia fortress. Built by Herod the Great and later enlarged by Rome, it sat at the northwest corner of the Temple Mount, overlooking the outer court where tens of thousands of Jews gathered during festivals. The symbolism was entirely deliberate. An armed Roman fortress looming over the most sacred site in Jewish life, a permanent reminder of who held the sword. At full strength, a legion numbered roughly 5,000 infantry plus auxiliary troops. Judea at any given time in the 1st century held somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 Roman troops, a mix of legionary detachments and auxiliary cohorts, the latter often drawn from Syria, Samaria, or other local populations. These auxiliaries were frequently more despised by the Jewish population than the Romans themselves. They were neighbors who had chosen the empire's side. Here's what surprises most people about the assignment. A soldier posted to Judea was not facing an organized enemy army in open battle. He was facing something Rome's military machine was far less designed to handle: insurgency. guerrilla action. A population that melted between loyalty and resistance depending on the season, the governor, the tax rate, and how recently a Roman unit had done something to offend a local holy man. The heat could kill you before the enemy did. In summer, the Jordan Valley floor, where several garrison posts sat, reached temperatures that made the legionnaires' 40-pound equipment load not a burden, but a genuine threat to life. The Judean desert to the east offered nothing. No shade, no water for miles. Hostile terrain that favored men who had grown up in it, over men who had marched in from the Rhine. And this is where we haven't yet asked the question that changes how you understand every scene in the Gospels featuring a Roman soldier. What did he eat? What did he carry? And what did it cost him to be here? To understand what a Roman soldier endured in Judea, you have to understand what a Roman soldier was before he ever arrived there. He was not a volunteer, not in the modern sense. The Roman legionary of the 1st century was a professional, signed to a contract of 20 to 25 years of continuous service. He had sworn a sacramentum, a sacred oath, not just to his commanding officer, but to the emperor himself. Breaking it was not desertion, it was sacrilege. He was typically recruited between the ages of 17 and 23. By the time he reached Judea, if he reached Judea, he had already drilled for years. He could march 20 miles in 5 hours in full kit. He could build a fortified camp from scratch in under 3 hours with nothing but the tools he carried on his back. He was, by any measure, one of the most physically capable soldiers in the ancient world. And then they told him where he was going. The Roman military had a clear internal hierarchy of postings. Britain, cold, barbaric, miserable. But at least there was a defined enemy who wore different clothes and fought in open battle. Germany, brutal winters and forest ambushes, but soldiers understood forest ambushes. Egypt, hot, but the Nile provided. The population was manageable. And the grain shipments back to Rome gave the posting strategic prestige. Judea was different. Judea offered the heat of Egypt without the Nile, the insurgency threat of Germany without the open terrain, and a religious and political complexity that no amount of military training prepared a Roman soldier for. A population who appealed not to tribal custom or personal vengeance, but to scripture, to prophecy, to a divine covenant that predated Rome by 1,000 years. When soldiers muttered to each other that Judea was a punishment posting, they were not wrong. Here's the detail that changes everything about how you picture a Roman soldier in Jerusalem. He carried Rome on his back, literally. The standard Roman legionary's marching load, what the soldiers called Marius's mules after the general who first enforced it, weighed between 40 and 60 pounds. Some scholars estimate closer to 66 when provisions were fully loaded. That is the weight of a large dog, carried on a man's back, in 105-degree heat, across terrain that dropped 1,200 feet below sea level at its lowest point. And we haven't even listed what was in the pack yet. Here's the detail most people skip. The Roman military's genius was inseparable from its cruelty. The same system that made legions invincible also made individual soldiers' lives almost incomprehensibly hard. Every Roman legionary in Judea carried the following on a standard march. Weapons: the pilum, a heavy javelin designed to bend on impact so it couldn't be thrown back. The gladius, the short stabbing sword, a dagger. A shield, the scutum, 4 feet tall and curved, made of laminated wood covered in leather and canvas, with an iron boss at the center. The scutum alone weighed between 13 and 22 pounds. Armour, the lorica segmentata that you picture, the banded iron plate armour, was only one variant. In Judea, where heat was the primary threat, many auxiliary units wore lorica hamata, a mail shirt, or lorica squamata, scale armor. None of them were cool. None of them breathed. Tools: a delabra, a combined pickaxe and mattock for digging fortifications, 2 wooden stakes for building palisades, a wicker basket for moving earth, a saw, a sickle, a leather strap and a carrying yoke, the furka from which everything hung. Food: 3 days' rations minimum, more on longer marches. Personal kit: a cooking pot, a mess tin, a canteen, typically a leather bladder or ceramic flask, a cloak for cold desert nights, and the tent section. Each 8-man contubernium, the Roman equivalent of a squad, shared 1 leather tent that was divided between them to carry. Total weight: 40 to 66 pounds, depending on provisions and full kit configuration. Modern military guidelines recommend no more than 33% of body weight for sustained marching load. The Roman legionary in full kit regularly exceeded 50% of body weight. 40 to 66 pounds in 105 degrees heat, below sea level. Think about what that means for one day. The Roman military's standard march, the iter, was 20 Roman miles, roughly 18.4 modern miles, completed in 5 hours at standard pace. In the temperate climate of Italy or Gaul, this was a feat of trained endurance. In the Jordan Valley in July, with no shade and the air sitting at 40 degrees Celsius before the sun reached its height, it was something closer to an act of survival. Soldiers died on marches in Judea, not from enemy action, from heat, from dehydration, from the compounding effect of full kit in a climate no Roman training manual had ever fully prepared them for. A centurion writing home from a posting in the region, letters preserved in papyrus fragments from Egypt and the Levant, described the Jordan Valley as a place where the air itself seemed hostile, where the sun did not warm but attacked. And yet, the march was not even the hardest part. Here's the deeper layer, because there is a question nobody asks about the Roman soldiers in the Gospels, and the answer is written into every scene they appear in. What did they eat? He did not eat what you think. The Roman military ran on grain, specifically wheat, frumentum, issued to each soldier as his primary ration. The daily grain ration was roughly 1.5 to 2 Roman pounds, approximately 850 grams of wheat. This was not bread. This was raw grain that the soldier ground himself, mixed with water, and baked into hard, flat cakes on the march, or boiled into a porridge called pulse. Pulse. Grain porridge. That was the daily reality of Rome's invincible military machine. The grain was supplemented, when supply lines were functioning, with lentils, beans, salt, olive oil, and occasionally cured meat or salt fish. Fresh meat was rare, reserved for feast days, official celebrations, and the aftermath of sacrifice. On campaign in Judea, where the supply lines ran through territory that local populations actively disrupted, fresh anything was an aspiration, not a guarantee. And then there was the drink. Posca, a mixture of sour wine, heavily diluted vinegar, and water, sometimes with herbs added. This was the standard Roman soldiers' drink on campaign, not because Romans preferred it, because it was safe. The acidity killed waterborne pathogens in a region where the water sources were frequently contaminated and dysentery was a constant threat. Every Roman soldier in Judea carried posca. It tasted, by every ancient account that survives, exactly as bad as it sounds. Posca, vinegar and water, the soldier's drink. Here's what most people never connect. When the Gospel of John records the crucifixion, a soldier lifting a sponge soaked in vinegar on a reed to the lips of Jesus, that was not a deliberate act of cruelty. It was a soldier reaching for the only liquid he had on his person, his posca, his ration, the drink he carried every day. He gave what he had. Whether it was an act of mercy or indifference, we cannot know, but it was posca, the drink of a soldier on a Judean posting, doing a job he had not chosen, in a place he would not have chosen, far from home. The detail is real. The soldiers in the Gospels were eating real food and drinking real drinks and wearing real armor and carrying real tools, in a real province, in a real climate, under real pressures that the text never stops to explain. Understanding those pressures changes what you see when you read those scenes. Here's the question nobody asks. If the assignment was this hard, this dangerous, this physically brutal, what was the Roman soldier in Judea actually paid for it? He was paid, but barely. Under Augustus, the standard legionary salary was 225 denarii per year. That sounds abstract. Here is what it meant in practice. Before the soldier saw a single coin, Rome deducted from his pay directly the cost of his food rations, the cost of his equipment, the cost of his uniform, the cost of the hay for any animal he used. A compulsory contribution to the burial fund, the collegium, that guaranteed him a proper funeral if he died on posting. What remained after deductions varied, but was typically somewhere between 75 and 100 denarii a year, roughly the annual wage of an unskilled laborer in Rome. The mightiest soldier in the ancient world, carrying 60 pounds across the Judean desert in 40-degree heat, earned the same as a man hauling stones in a Roman quarry. 225 denarii, minus deductions. Net take-home, approximately 75 to 100 denarii per year. This is the economic reality behind the gospel scene that every reader has passed over 100 times without fully registering. In Luke chapter 3, soldiers approach John the Baptist. They ask him, "What should we do?" And John does not tell them to stop soldiering. He tells them, "Do not extort money from anyone by threats or by false accusation, and be content with your wages." To men who were deducted into near poverty while stationed in one of the empire's most hostile provinces. The word John uses for extort by threats, diaseo in the Greek, means to shake violently, to intimidate, to use physical force or its threat to extract money. That was the lived reality of what soldiers on low pay in an occupied province did. Not because they were uniquely evil, because they were underpaid, far from home, surrounded by a population that resented them, and carrying weapons in a culture where weapons translated directly into economic leverage if you chose to use it that way. Some did. The papyrus records and legal complaints that survive from Roman-occupied provinces are full of allegations against soldiers who supplemented their wages through intimidation. John was not making a theoretical moral point. He was addressing a specific, documented, widespread problem in the province where Roman soldiers actually lived. And Jesus knew what that word meant to a soldier. By the end of a posting in Judea, the Roman soldier was not the same man who had arrived. The letters that survive, written on wooden tablets, on papyrus, scratched into pottery shards, do not read like the letters of conquerors. They read like the letters of men who were tired, who were homesick, who were managing the gap between what the empire had promised and what the empire had delivered. The Vindolanda tablets, discovered at a Roman fort on Hadrian's Wall and dated to the late 1st and early 2nd century, give us the clearest window into what Roman soldiers actually wrote to each other and to home. They are requests for more socks because the cold was unbearable. They are invitations to birthday parties. They are supply lists and complaints about rations. Rome had no official word for homesickness, but soldiers did. They called it desiderium, a longing, a yearning. It appears in military correspondence with a frequency that tells you everything about what the experience of a long posting actually felt like inside. "I make the best of it. God willing, I will see you again." That phrase, or something close to it, appears in variations across multiple surviving military letters from the Roman world. It is not heroic. It is not triumphant. It is just a man, far from home, in a hostile province, trying to hold on until the posting ended. The Roman soldiers who appear in the Gospels were not symbols. They were not representatives of imperial evil, though the empire they served was capable of great evil. They were individuals, with names, with families, with pay disputes and ration complaints and letters they were trying to write home before the light failed. They walked the same roads Jesus walked. They bought food in the same markets. They stood at the same wells. Some of them, the Gospel records suggest, were not indifferent to what they witnessed in that province. The centurion whose servant Jesus healed, he had built a synagogue for the local community with his own resources. The Gospel of Luke is explicit about this. A Roman officer in a province he was occupying, building a Jewish house of worship out of something the text calls love for the people. That is not what the empire taught him. That is what Judea did to him. Judea, summer, 4th hour of the morning, around 10 o'clock by the modern clock, and the heat is already absolute. A soldier stands at the gate of the Antonia fortress. He has been on posting for 14 months. He has 16 months left before his unit rotates. His name, if we knew it, would be something ordinary. Titus, Marcus, Gaius. He is from a town in northern Italy he has not seen in 3 years. His mother writes. He writes back when there is a courier. He is wearing his lorica. It is never fully cool against his skin. It holds the heat of the previous day until dawn, then begins accumulating the heat of the new day before the sun has fully cleared the Mount of Olives to the east. Below him, Jerusalem is waking up. The sound of the city rises before the city itself is visible. Voices in Aramaic, in Greek, in the dialect of Galilee that has a specific cadence he has learned to recognize. The smell of bread baking in the lower market. Somewhere, an animal for sacrifice. Cedar smoke drifting down from the temple precincts above. He is not thinking about empire. He is thinking about whether the water in the cistern below has been replenished since yesterday. He is thinking about the blister on his left heel that has not healed in 3 weeks because the heat will not let it. He is thinking about the letter he has not finished. His daily ration of grain is waiting in the cookhouse. He will grind it himself or trade a favor with someone who will grind it for him. There will be posca. There will be the dull ache of a body that has been carrying 60 pounds across stone and sand for over a year without adequate rest. In a few hours, a crowd will form near the temple gate. There will be a dispute. There will be the particular tension that comes during festival season, when the population quadruples and the grievances multiply, and the line between a religious demonstration and an uprising is a line he has learned to read by instinct. He does not hate these people. He does not love them. He is tired, underpaid, and far from home, in a place the empire sent him because someone, somewhere, decided this province needed watching. He will do his duty. He will write the letter. He will count the days. Dust, vinegar, the weight of Rome. What the Roman soldier in Judea reveals is not a story about the glory of empire. It is a story about the cost of empire, paid not by emperors or senators or historians, but by ordinary men who were issued a contract, handed a pack, and pointed toward a province that would test everything the Roman system had ever built them to be. They ate porridge and drank vinegar. They marched in armor that the sun turned into an oven. They were paid less than laborers, deducted into near poverty, stationed in a place where the population's resistance was theological rather than tactical, and therefore impossible to simply defeat. Some of them broke. Some deserted. Some extorted the locals they were supposed to police, and confirmed every fear the Jewish population held about occupation. And some of them built synagogues. The empire is dust. The letters are not. The papyrus fragments, the wooden tablets, the scratched pottery, they survive. And what they preserve is not the voice of Rome. It is the voice of men inside Rome's machine who were cold or hot or hungry or homesick, and who reached for a piece of wood to write to someone who might understand. The posca-soaked sponge at the crucifixion, the centurion who loved the people he occupied, the soldiers who asked John the Baptist what they should do and waited for an answer. These were not props in someone else's story. They were the story. The armor rusted. The man remains. What detail surprised you most? The Pascha connection at the crucifixion, the pay deductions that drove extortion, or the centurion who built a synagogue? Drop the one that hit you hardest in the comments and tell me, does knowing what these men endured change how you read the soldiers in the Gospels?